Let's get educated. That's why we're here, to bring you the stories impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses. It's time for a little education.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome. I am Katie Petrick, joined by that dude right over there.
That's
in
right.
that seat, Mr. David Fiorazzo.
That's right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
He's here for all of it.
Got it covered.
What happened this morning there, David?
Dr. Duke Pesta, FreedomProject, is going to be my guest. We're talking about the dangers of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. You wouldn't believe the money that's being spent on that, from academia to the corporate level. So Duke, my guest today. You can subscribe at worldviewmatters.tv, and please share the podcast.
Because sharing is caring.
Or something.
Or something. Now, before we get started, just a quick reminder that if you enjoy the video platform known as Rumble, we are now uploading all of our episodes of Educated and Worldview Matters to our new channel over there on the Rumble. So please visit rumble.com/FreedomProject and give us a little follow.
That's right. And that brings us to the special time of week. By the way, Mr. Alex Newman was my guest on Worldview Matters Monday. If you missed that, go check that out. But now we have him to deliver a story that he wants to share about. So it's that time of week. So let's just say, hey, Alex Newman.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here with you. And so this is sad news to report today. The legendary activist Alice Whitehurst Moore, she's, of course, the wonderful woman who sparked the textbook wars back in 1974 while she was on the Kanawha County Board of Education in West Virginia. She has passed away at 82 years old. And incredible lady, right? A lot of young people today protesting the filth in the textbooks don't even realize, but this is the lady who got it all started. And of course, her efforts changed the course of American history. But as we can tell by the battles going on today, ultimately failed to remove the dishonest books, the propaganda, the radical indoctrination taking place in the government's so-called schools. Now, the movement that Moore led actually helped foreshadow what's going on right now, the ongoing war over porn and other perverted books in the schools. And as regular readers of the Newman Report know, the books and materials in the classrooms normalizing, I mean, every kind of sick perversion. Just yesterday, somebody from California sent me a book that was in all their school libraries called Push, that talks about raping babies and bestiality, sexual activities with dogs. Of course, you've all seen the ones normalizing gender confusion. We've talked about books where kids are told to solve world hunger by eating babies. I mean, this is the kind of sick stuff. Obviously, that she didn't succeed in getting this stuff out. It's only gotten worse. And the battles, are still going. Of course, parents all across the country have been reacting with horror to this, but the evil just keeps growing. Now, going back to Moore, she started her activism back in 1974. She was a school board member, and she found out that these new, quote-unquote, language arts textbooks were going to be promoting multiculturalism. We've talked about multiculturalism quite a bit here. It's this crazy notion that all cultures are basically equal, except Western civilization, which is terrible because it's based on the Bible. But all other cultures are equally awesome, right? You want to sacrifice virgins to your demon gods? Oh, that's fine, right? You want to be cannibalistic? Oh, that's fine, right? You don't want to judge those cultures. They're equally valid to yours, which, of course, we all know is preposterous. But this is the idea behind multiculturalism, right? Multiculturalism for its own sake. Now, after looking at these books, Moore was upset about the propaganda. She tried to stop them from being adopted. And when she was unable to do that, she actually called for boycotts of some of the businesses that were involved. And news reports at that time reported that the local community was paralyzed along with some of the surrounding counties. And eventually, this whole saga became known as the Kanawha County textbook controversy, or the textbook wars, is how some people have referred to it. Obviously, people were not happy about those books. If you read the news reports from the time, people were so upset. Some even reportedly, at least, resorted to violence. One person was actually killed, although, of course, Moore herself always told people to be peaceful in their efforts to protect the children. One activist who I spoke with about all this says that there may have even been, false flags by the education establishment to try to make the protesters look bad. But in any case, this had a profound significance back in the 1970s. It actually became a rallying point for the Heritage Foundation, as well as the very fast-growing, at that time, Christian conservative movement. And even Ronald Reagan was inspired by what was happening. But of course, unfortunately, 50 years and countless millions and billions of dollars later spent on school reform, Yeah, government schools are, of course, worse than ever. In fact, the books that Moore was objecting to back in the 70s, those would be considered way too conservative by the lunatics running the education asylum today. The books that parents are objecting to today are so perverted, they're so grotesque. Almost certainly the people handing those to children would have been arrested for indecency, for giving obscenity to minors. And now we've got exemptions for schools and for libraries who want to give that stuff to the kids. And in fact, the tables have really turned now. Right now, we've got the FBI, the DOJ terrorizing parents who speak out at school board meetings. They've got major parental rights groups like Moms for Liberty being labeled hate groups and anti-government extremists by fringe left-wing hate groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center. Sorry, working with the Biden regime. So Moore, wonderful, lovely lady. She was the mother of 5 children. She was the wife of a pastor, and she passed away at her home in Tennessee. She eventually left West Virginia back to her home state of Tennessee. And according to her obituary, she was surrounded by loving family members when she went on to her eternal reward. She had 9 grandchildren who survived her and 6 great-grandchildren and counting. But her legacy of trying to protect innocent children from this horrific indoctrination in the government schools will live on for a long time, as she inspires parents of this generation to stand up and take action to protect the kids. But I do think it's important to mention, folks, that despite her heroic efforts, despite her making millions of Americans aware of the dangers that were taking place in the government schools, that were in these textbooks being used to brainwash kids, the horrors have only gotten worse. In fact, orders of magnitude worse today than they were back then. And so I think it's really time to just be clear. We need a new strategy. No matter how many billions, no matter how many hours you spend trying to reform this system, it's not going to get any better. It's hopeless. It's time for conservatives and Christians to recognize the government schools cannot be reformed. We need to just abandon them. Thanks, guys.
What in the name of evil happened to Michigan? Governor Gretchen Whitmer. She recently signed bills establishing the minimum age of consent for marriage to be 18. Great. But she has also promoted irreversible gender transition procedures and abortion as she caters to the Planned Parenthood agenda. Details coming up. I'm David Fiorazzo, and this is Christ and Culture. Talking like a true feminist, Whitmer seems to believe marriage is a form of, abuse. And if young women get married, they may not have fulfilling careers. She must be a fan of Margaret Sanger, no doubt. So the governor also claimed one of her top priorities is to keep Michiganders safe and healthy. But these days, we have to define what they mean by safe and healthy. According to the radical left, help them explain that, because what they're doing is morally unsafe and unhealthy. For example, Planned Parenthood thrives on abortion and the promotion of sexual activity and experimentation. To minors, they promote this. They have dramatically increased their business practices now to provide puberty blockers and increase the number of gender transition procedures. But it's all about women's health, of course. Joshua Arnold also writes, at the Washington Stand, he said people in the deep blue state of Michigan seem to be supporting this. Quote, Michigan voters in 2022 approved a ballot proposal 3, that may have enshrined gender transition procedures on children in the state constitution. And this was argued by conservative legal analyst Margot Cleveland. Ostensibly about abortion, the proposal grants every individual, regardless of age or parental consent, a fundamental right to reproductive freedom, including but not limited to sterilization and infertility care. The squirrely language was crafted by Planned Parenthood and left-wing backers, said Cleveland. So we also know more today about puberty blockers, also known as hormone therapy, and that cross-sex hormones can and have caused irreversible infertility damage in countless people. Sadly, but interestingly, we are learning of more detransitioners. They have sued practitioners who perform transition procedures on them while they were minors. And yet Governor Gretchen Whitmer said that she went after those who used their power to prey on young people when she was a prosecutor. She said she did this. She claimed that as governor, she is proud to sign legislation to strengthen protections for children. And yet she not only vowed to fight like hell to get Proposal 3 passed, Whitmer ordered her state departments and agencies to implement it systematically and ensure that reproductive freedom, you got to put those in quotes, meaning abortion services, as well as gender transitions for minors, is secured for all Michigan residents, including minors. So Whitmer has also signed legislation banning conversion therapy, of course, that's counseling, for any sexually confused or unhappy children who may be considering that they are not LGBTQ after all. Can't do that in Michigan. But it's not just Whitmer. Her Attorney General, Dana Nessel, has filed a brief against laws protecting minors from gender transition procedures. Just last week, the Michigan Supreme Court adopted a rule requiring lawyers to refer to persons' gender identity and preferred pronouns instead of their real sex. On the one hand, Michigan leaders claim they want to protect people, but the same leaders endorse dangerous trans procedures for children. Really? So back at the Washington stand, Joshua Arnold adds that the Democrat ideology ends up, quote, locking them into a lifetime of drugs and therapy, likely including permanent infertility and sterilization, irreversible physical changes. So once again, what we're seeing plague our country is an open attack on the image of God in mankind. Those pushing the agenda of death wish to decrease and limit the population. To them, the number of human beings on the earth is just way too high. And deceived young people have had healthy organs surgically removed and today many suffer from lifelong complications. So the question is, how is this considered protecting children? It's not. They have redefined the terms and meanings, calling evil good. Haven't they overplayed their hand? Because it's not just Michigan, but the whole country, even in some red states. This delusion is colorblind. It'll be in every state to some degree. When will it reach a point where people will not only catch on, but shout enough and resist? God bless you, and keep speaking the truth about things that matter.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on pristine quality bedding, towels, slippers, signature pillows, and much more when you use the code EDUCATED. That's EDUCATED. Educated. Support this show and a great American company.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. I am Dr. Duke, and I am joined today by Dr. Jake Jacobs. Jake, always good to see you.
It's wonderful to be here, Duke.
Nice to be retired. You don't have to wear a blazer. Look at you. You dressed like you were just at Woodstock, but that's okay. We'll take you anyway. Please tell me you are not wearing sandals under that table.
No, I'm not.
I'm not. I can still talk to you then. Well, the big news, everybody's talking about this, is the coup to overthrow Speaker McCarthy.
It's historical.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And, there's a lot of hand-wringing. There's a lot of rhino-type conservatives arguing that this is the end of the world, that somehow the lunatic fringe took over, and blah, 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 blah. But let's start with this, Jake. He was a completely compromised Speaker of the House from the beginning. How many weeks did it take? How many votes did it take to get him in that
14 ballots.
14 ballots. And how many promises to the Democrats across the aisle did he have to broker before he would get elected?
And how many promises did he break?
Yes, talk about that.
Well, Gates and others, the so-called rebels, They were upset because, in essence, for him to be able to get it passed for the 14th ballot back in January of this year, he promised he would put forth a balanced budget amendment, a single act within the bill instead of this omnibus, all this incredible spending. He promised to stop the debt ceiling baloney that's been going on. None of those promises were kept. So finally, these true, authentic conservatives said the buck stops here, and this is where we're at.
And I agree with you. I don't think it's any great loss. I do understand the arguments, and let me rehearse some of the arguments. Well, McCarthy was getting some things done, like, for instance, the investigation of the Biden crime family. That at least was moving forward. Again, I don't understand that argument. Is it going to stop if you get a new speaker? I don't believe that it will. Other people point out that it's only because McCarthy made deals with the Democrats that he was able to get anything done, that there were certain topics on which the Democrats were going to be a little bit lenient. But that's exactly what you don't want, right?
You see, Duke, the thing that frustrates me right now is that we talk about how much he got done. Well, with the Democratic Senate, you're going to get pretty much 90% of nothing done.
Exactly.
All right. So they passed a number of bills, but they go nowhere.
Right.
To me, this is a lot of bells and whistles. And really, it's the same old deep swamp functioning. And there were 8 Republicans that were absolutely disgusted with the status quo. Enough.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do not see this as a great loss. I mean, does it give the Republicans a bit of a black eye? Does it? I mean, when you have the entire Democrat caucus laughing at this happening, right? That they teamed up with 8 Republicans who they would consider to be the worst people in the world, those 8. And that tells you something about the Democrats, too. The fact that they were willing, after had made a deal with McCarthy, the fact that they were willing to take the sides of those clowns, from their perspective, the clowns, right? The conservatives, the Freedom Caucus. The fact that they were willing to partner with them shows something that we should never, ever forget. When it comes to the Progressive Party, the Democrats, they don't care. Whatever advances their power 1 iota, they're going to do it.
You are spot on right now, and this is the part that gets me. Nancy Pelosi, she was able to keep that progressive, hardcore left-wing socialist coalition together for one primary reason: the spending of trillions and trillions of dollars with profound social engineering. And millions of Americans are saying enough already. And the Republicans couldn't join together in unison and say the buck stops here. I mean, look at... We bring in $5 trillion and we spend $7 trillion. And I've been watching this stuff for 50 years of my life, and it's the same old. Right before the holidays, they come along and say they're going to shut down the government, and the bad Republicans, if they're united in anything, are trying to, in essence, say, we can't spend more money. We give them this amount of money, and then they spend past it, and then they demand that the debt ceiling be raised because all they want to keep on doing is spending more money. We're up to $33 trillion. This cannot keep up.
And the course that McCarthy was on, signing your soul away for 45 more days. What in the world? Do you know the Democrats? What do you think is going to change in 45 days?
By the way, it's right before Thanksgiving, isn't it?
Of course. The holidays, people aren't paying attention. What do you actually think, if you're McCarthy, you're going to get that you couldn't get now? And the other thing that I think is really remarkable about all of this is that what we're seeing in the people are lamenting that this is going to be a huge, lasting black eye against the Republicans. Well, is it possible for congressional approval numbers to grow lower? It was like 7%. Right. I mean, so everybody who hates Congress isn't going to hate them more. I mean, in fact, I think there are a lot of people, like you and I are 2 of them, who want to see a Congress that is willing to fight, that is willing to try everything they can do to try to move an agenda. We're dealing with the future of the country here.
Now, Doc, can I ask you something, Doc,
Sure.
here? Look, I was watching all the pundits, all these so-called conservatives, Newt Gingrich, one of my favorite historians, Victor Davis Hanson, Jim Jordan, all these guys that we've either worked with, we know, we've seen what they've done, we consider them at least I did up till today, conservatives, but they disagree with this. And it's like a number of us are saying, when is anybody going to stand up, speak out, and say enough of this BS, this continuing raising of the debt ceiling, the spending of money we don't have, the printing of money we don't have, and we wonder why we have inflationary processes going on in America right now. The American middle class is shrinking because of what these guys are doing.
I'm sick and tired of Republicans telling us how bad it is. And then when somebody tries to change, they're the problem, right? Oh, you're going to default now. Well, of course, you're going to default now. You're going to default in 10 years, 3 years, 5 years. I mean, the idea that we get on the right is all the time. Everybody knows exactly what's wrong. When somebody tries to shake things up or to stand athwart what's going on, they become the problem. Let me ask you a question. John Boehner, would we be better off right now if somebody had done this to him? Would it be worse to no way.
Yeah.
Let me ask you another one. How about Paul Ryan?
Your guy.
Scuzzy Paul Ryan, right? Sleazy Paul Ryan. Judas Paul Ryan. We're in Wisconsin, right? That guy. Would we have been better off or worse if somebody had kneecapped him the way that McCarthy was just kneecapped?
I know. You're
the
calling
answer
it right.
is yes.
I know.
The answer is
And you notice
yes.
that the Wokocrats, the Democrats, didn't go after Nancy that way because they knew she was the sugar mommy. She would deliver the goodies at the expense of the American people. And it's interesting because what I've been hearing, the lefties and even Republicans and Fox News and others saying, well, Matt Gaetz, there he is. He's out trying to raise money because of this. Matt Gaetz does not take $1 from lobbyists, not $1 from special interest lobbyists. So he's trying to survive. That's unique in Congress.
There is much more to talk about, but for the rest of the story, check out the full episode of The Dr. Duke Show.
If you have a smartphone, tablet, Roku, or Apple TV, consider downloading the Freedom Project Media app. It's 100% free and includes all of our weekly shows, plus lecture series, archive programs, and award-winning animated videos for families like the Presidential Minute, Battles of America, and Heroes of the West. Don't rely on the social media giants to keep you informed. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app from your app store and allow notifications. And we'll let you know when a new video is ready.
All right, friends. There's a restaurant in Manhattan that seems to be extremely difficult to get a reservation at, and for a good reason. It doesn't exist.
Wait, what?
All right, as part of a joke, a 21-year-old prankster named Mehran created the ultimate non-restaurant experience. Work with me here, follow along. It began a couple of years ago, 2021, when he cooked his 16 friends dinner at his home. The meal was so good that his buddies all left glowing reviews about the revolutionary steak experience. So the next day, strangers showed up at his home looking to eat steak. Intrigued by the response, he decided to start a restaurant website touting his delicacy and called it Mehran's Steakhouse. He also claimed that the restaurant was 100 years old. Over the next 2 years, 2,600 people signed up to be on a wait list for a restaurant that didn't exist. Katie?
Yeah.
Only
there's
in
more.
New York.
But wait, there's more.
But wait.
If you call anything a steakhouse and you can't run, ooh, sounds fancy.
Yeah.
All right, he then decided to rent a venue in an old public bathhouse in Manhattan.
Uh-oh.
He got a one-day liquor license, one day only. He got the food handling permits, and he invited 212 New York City elites to attend. Guests were served steak, potatoes, and whole milk, which they were told completed the life cycle of the cow. That's hilarious.
Oh my
Now,
goodness.
the cost to attend this fake pop-up steakhouse was $114 per plate. But when the jig was up and the patrons were notified that,
It was a prank.
This is a prank.
It's not a real deal.
Most said that life is all about experiences, and they can definitely say they had an experience.
Well, I'm sure
it may have
everybody-
been the first experience in their life.
Right.
Because,
How many of them? 200? Over 200?
Yeah, 200.
Yeah, so I'm
Of
sure
course,
they
it has to
all
be
had
elite.
that attitude. Oh, we'll just go along with it. Right. I'll bet some of them
This
were
is-
a little peeved.
This is hilarious. Oh, yeah, a couple were. But this is hilarious to me because New York City, Manhattan, ooh, so posh, so fancy.
Elites.
Oh, look
Yes.
oh, this steak here cost $114, so that must make
So,
it so much
steak,
better than
potatoes-
every other meal I've ever had just
And-
because of the price point and whole milk.
And milk.
At one point, you can see the waiter there. He walked around the gallon of whole milk to the tables as if it's a bottle of wine, saying, "Hello, would you like the
There he is.
the whole milk?"
Look at that on the left there.
And he said to
He's got- he's
complete
just pouring it out of the milk jug.
complete the life
And look at
cycle
he's got old tennis shoes on and like a
Now, here's the thing. If this restaurant would have gone on one more day, all the vegans would have been outside, just like protesting away because how
yeah.
dare you provide the milk
dare
for
you.
this? But this is don't take yourself so seriously.
We did a story last week about a guy that put in this big art show, a blank
yeah.
canvas. So we've got a theme
We
going
got some
on.
good stuff going on
Yeah.
here. I do want to say kudos to them for doing that well. If you've ever watched the Bravo show, Top Chef, that's what one of the challenges is. And that person who does the worst has to, be eliminated at the end. And these are like professionally trained chefs, and they crumble when they have to serve, 100 plates or 58 plates or whatever. These people served like 21-year-olds served the 200 and some people. Yeah. And apparently it's not like the kitchen lit on fire or anything. And they're not professional chefs at all. And so it kind of goes to like the snootiness level of food in our country.
Oh, jeez.
So kudos to them, I say. That's what I say. All right, well, you know what? That's all I have to say because we're going to wrap up Educated for this week. Now, of course, don't forget, you can catch Educated on the go by simply subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform. And if you're in the mood, or the moo, like the cow, leave us a 5-star review for our quality over quantity banter.
All right. For Katie and myself, thanks for watching, listening, sharing, and supporting the show. Until next week, stay educated, America.